Charity, can you state your name and the court that you're running for?
Charity Deville, Justice of the Peace, Precinct 4.
Okay, and why are you running for this office?
I'm running for this office because I feel like I can relate to people. I feel like the current administration has not done a very good job. When you're an elected official, I think it's important to hold yourself above the law and to make decisions that reflect in your community, when they look at you, that they respect and have honor for a judge. And I just think it's important that the faith of the people be renewed. I think a lot of people have lost faith in politics. A lot of people have lost faith in elected officials. And I'm running because I love the law. I've got experience, and I think that this is the perfect position for me.
Speaking of your experience, can you briefly describe your qualifications for the office?
Sure. So I answered an ad in 2002 in the Star-Telegram, and I faxed my resume. Make it a shorter story than it probably really is, but at the end of the interview, the attorneys present, which was a long interview, they said, "So Charity, do you have any questions for us?" And I said, "Yeah, what's a paralegal?" And they all laughed, and at the end of the interview, they said, "You've got the job. We want to hire you. We want to train you. We want you to walk alongside this attorney." It's a well-known firm in Fort Worth. But I love it. And so for 17 years, almost 17 years, that's what I've done. I've drafted and prepared and met with clients and been in court, been before the judges, been to trial. And if anybody knows anything about a paralegal does all the work and usually gives the notebook to the attorney. He walks in, reads it in his car, and argues the case before the judge. So I just feel like it's a great fit.
Okay. What is the proper role of government?
The proper role of government. I'm for less government and more personal responsibility. I've always been that way. I believe the government is important, though, because then you've got a martial law situation going on where people just do their own thing. So I think there needs to be some really well-established government roles and functions. But I believe that as far as coming into the family, coming into your personal decisions with how you parent, for instance, I think the government overreaches in that scenario a lot of times, especially welfare as well. They need to take personal responsibility a little bit more.
When and for what reason should state or local governments be allowed to seize private property under eminent domain?
When and where?
And for what reason?
I think if there is a debt to be owed, I think if there is an order against you, I think if there is a reason, as long as it falls under that state or federal financial limit, that it is lawful. Could you give me the definition for eminent domain so I know exactly how to answer this?
Eminent domain is essentially a government taking private property.
But for what? But for what reason?
For any purpose. To build a
Well,
road.
and I think that's kind of the basis of our question is, are there certain reasons that you believe the government should be allowed to seize private property?
So you're not talking about or are you talking about court cases included, like if the judgment's against you, but you're talking about when counties take unincorporated areas and pull them into the county area for tax purposes, whatever, taking a homeowner's property, regardless of their opinion on that.
I think the seminal example would be Jerry Jones using eminent domain to take private citizens' homes to build his new stadium.
Okay, yeah, so I had an uncle that happened to in East Texas. He had been in this property for years and years and years. They tried to buy him out. He said no, and they eventually, because he didn't accept the offer, they took the property anyway. He had no choice. So I feel like that is a sham. I feel like when you buy that property, that's your property, And that's the whole purpose of owning something. That's yours. You have the final decision on that. So I would certainly hope that in an eminent domain situation that the homeowner or the property owner or the property in general owner would have the right to retain that property.
And I think on the last question, you might have been getting civil asset forfeiture, kind of confused with that.
Okay.
And that is kind of the line of my next question. Is Texas in need of civil asset forfeiture reform?
Civil asset forfeiture reform.
So someone gets charged with a crime or, charged with a crime and they seize assets, sometimes as small as, a few dollars, sometimes a house and a car.
Sure.
So.
Well, not even charged with a crime, just accused, not even filed charges, not even arrested, but they seize their property and use it for government purposes.
Yeah, and they tie it up in the courts based on criminal activity
or suit.
Supposes.
See, I think there again, that's where, that's where who you've elected into office comes into play, because if that's going on, which I'm sure it does, and more often than people are aware, but that's once again where the government overreaches and the government comes into areas where people own property. It's their property. Now, if you break the law, if you've actually legitimately done something that is illegal, you've hurt another person, you've stolen, theft, tax evasion, then you go through the proper process in court. You go through the proper steps, and then if you're convicted of that, then absolutely, if there's a seizure, if there's a writ of sequestration or a writ of garnishment for a specific amount, then yes, the government has every right to take that property up into that amount of debt that you've owed. But as far as taking it under accusations or under pending cases, absolutely not.
What are the top 3 issues for your campaign?
The top 3 issues for my campaign. As a candidate? Okay, so as a candidate, the top 3 issues are that I think a lot of people don't realize what a JP does. I think that a lot of times they'll say, oh, you marry people. Sure, JP does marry people. They absolutely do. But it's one of the most important courts for the local citizen. Simply because there's a $10,000 limit. It's the people's court. It's the court of the people and for the people. So your neighbor owes you something, take it to the people's court. You take it to the JP. I feel like it gets overlooked. And so, can you repeat the question one more time? Sorry.
What are the top 3 issues?
Top 3 issues. Is that I don't think people know that the Justice Court is available. So acknowledgement and just knowing that it's there. I think that's an issue, is that the citizens do not know it's there and do not utilize it and as well as they could. Another issue would be, I know that the current administration has had quite a bit of let's say there's some legal issues going on. There's some issues within the party going on. Some other issues that I won't bring up that I've located on my own, financial issues, and I just think that elected officials should hold themselves to a higher standard. I think I said that earlier, and it's a shame. You are voted in, you're elected because people want you there and they trust you. And it's important to have the people trust you, and you have to perform and behave in a certain manner. And if you don't, then you should be removed. So that's the second one. The third issue would be transparency. I know that some of the other JPs have had some legal issues with transparency, and I think it's so important that the record books be opened. I think that the current and hopefully if I'm elected, that the books are open at any time for anybody to review, and that place is tore up from top to bottom, every nook and cranny opened, exposed, and this is the situation, this is what it looks like, this is how I'm going to fix it, this is how it's going to be corrected. So I think the transparency, because you don't know what's in the vaults there. They hold items for the constables and the seizure items, and are record books being kept? I've never seen them. haven't asked, but you know, I just think transparency and knowing, like, what does that money go to? What does the wedding money go to? That's cash money that comes in. I would like to know, you know, are taxes being filed, which is a very important question. Are taxes being filed on that cash money that you receive? So I think that's the three biggest issues for me.
And what are the top three things that make you more qualified than your opponents?
Number one would be my legal experience. I believe I have more legal experience than any of the other opponents. There's a police officer, and then there's, I believe, a probation officer running, and then there's an older woman. I believe she's retired. So I just feel like I have more experience legally, absolutely. One more time, the question, sorry.
The top three things that make you more qualified.
Okay. The second would be the fact that I can relate. I'm a very relatable person, and I think that's so important in politics, and I think that's so important in the eye of the public. When a person comes in, they want to be able to relate to you and to really feel like you get them and you hear them and you understand them, and that regardless of what you look like, where you come from, what you're wearing, what your income is, that judge or that elected official is going to relate to you. One more time on that question. Sorry. I get so emotional. I get so into it. I got to hear.
The top three things that make you more qualified.
Okay. So my relatability, my legal experience, the first two. And the third one is that I am a problem-solving woman. I am a big picture person. I can see the big picture of just about anything. Sometimes it takes me a few minutes. Sometimes it takes me a couple days. I think when we rush to make decisions, sometimes it's a hasty decision. So my ability to reflect, see the big picture, and then put a plan of action into place. I'm very, very, very confident in that ability that I have, and I think that would play a big part in this.
And can you describe your political experience, any experience you have as a volunteer, staffer, candidate, or office holder, including the names of any candidates or office holders for whom you've worked or volunteered?
Sure. So I've worked on Brooke Allen's campaign. That was a lot of fun. I volunteered on Roger Williams' campaign. Worked at his museum a little bit and did a couple of events out there. The Republican Women, Fort Worth Republican Women, done a couple of little envelope stuffings and that sort of deal. And that's any candidate, you said, or, okay. My stepdad used to be in politics, and so went to his events and got to see how that works and watch him put up signs, and I didn't participate as much. I more or less just watched, but it was a fun watching. So that's about it. And
the last question we have is regarding what is your position on marriage rights?
As far as same-sex?
It's kind of an open-ended question.
Okay.
As far as how you feel about his marriage contract, also same-sex rights, since you'll be doing weddings.
It's a big deal, hot spot.
Yeah.
So when this whole thing, let's just touch on that, because that's the one that's probably closest to my heart. When the same-sex law, marriage law passed, I was very upset because I didn't believe in it. It doesn't fit with my spiritual upbringing. But I will say this, it's the law, and the law has to be upheld. And once again, the relatable thing. So just speaking to people in the community, everybody, that I've met, not everyone, but a lot of people that I meet, their sister, is gay, or their brother is gay, and you know what? That gay brother or sister means a lot to that person, and it's not my right to take that ability away from them. Do I agree with it? No. Does that matter when I'm doing my job? No, it doesn't. I still do my job, and so, that's a big deal. As far as you just made that a really open-ended question. So yes, I've been asked that quite a few times. Will you marry same-sex couples? My answer to that is yes, absolutely. But there will be a stipulation, and it will be a very strict stipulation. I have made a public, announcement to everyone in my church, my family, that I will refuse absolutely to say under God, holy matrimony, Jesus in heaven, anything biblical in a same-sex marriage will not be used in my, if I'm elected, in my courtroom. And I will let them know this is a legal binding document, and that's exactly what I'm giving you. And I'm very happy with that decision. I feel very at peace with doing that. But yeah, that was a really open-ended question, like marriage. Like, do I like marriage? Yeah, I think marriage is great. I think people should get married if they want to get married.
Yeah, it's a very hot button issue for most people. Have you considered the issue? There are at least one JP in Tarrant County that refuses to do any marriages whatsoever, so he doesn't have to participate in the same sex because it's against his beliefs.
Really? Well, so I've made the commitment. I think this is a big point. I've made the commitment to give 1/3 of all monies earned from being a JP, doing weddings, from the weddings earnings. 1/3 of that is going back to my local community. And that's going back not to charities, not to big organizations. It's going actually, and it's fully transparent. I'm welcoming people to say, how much money do you make from weddings? I'm happy to disclose that. And then to give that money back to my community. So in turn, I'm not just doing weddings or not doing weddings because I don't agree with it. I'm actually going to get something from it and let the community benefit from that financially.
Okay. Do you guys have any other questions?
No.
I think that's it.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.